musings.
Hello and welcome. My name is Ravinder Bhan and I have with me Mr. Anand Bagalwadi, who is joining me from Bangalore. As I wrote on LinkedIn a few days back, Anand and I started our career in the early 80s, and since then have known each other. We have grown, maybe not together, but we have grown in our life, career, whatever. And at this stage, one thing that we both wanted when we met in Bangalore a few days back, and we thought, what does one reflect and pass on to the next generation from whatever we have learned? And then got born the concept of doing a web series for your benefit and to share our experiences with you so that the next generation of managers is aware of some of the lessons that we have learned. I'm not saying that we are going to be, this is the only lesson that you will need. I'm also not saying that whatever we have learned in our lifespan is 100% going to be applicable to you, but some of these experiences will be of use. Now, the reason why we wanted to call this Die Empty, this series is going to be called Die Empty. Why? When I wrote about that on LinkedIn, a lot of people said that, no, that should be Die Fulfilled. Well, to our mind, Die Fulfilled is a slightly different concept than what is Die Empty. With that, I invite Anand to tell us a little bit about what is this all about dying empty? Why should we die empty? What is meant by dying empty? And how does one actually die empty? Over to you, Anand.
Thanks, Ravinder, and thanks for having me in this web series session. Firstly, let me give credits where it is due. Die Empty is a book by Todd Henry. Now, what I have gleaned out of that book is that Die Empty is a concept. It's a guide for reclaiming all your passions, finding your voice, and unleashing your brilliance every single day. You know, most of us live with the stubborn idea that we will always have a tomorrow, but sooner or later, all our tomorrows will run out and we will die with all our ideas and passions within ourselves. Now, that's not a life worth living, you know. So if you have ideas, if you have experiences, put them on the table. Be they be good, bad, or indifferent, and let the world pick it up. Maybe some of your colleagues will benefit. Maybe some of your friends will benefit. Maybe somebody will come out with a greater idea. So it is with this passion that we say, die empty. Empty yourself and put everything on the table, Ravinder. That is what, you know, we should be discussing in this web series. And I thought...
Anand, that's a fantastic explanation. And if I may ask or add, you know, a lot of people say that one has to die fulfilled. That means you live a life of fulfillment. Now, my personal, I also used to believe in that maybe a few weeks back or a few months back. But if you go a little higher, then you look at one thing. You look at, okay, I have died fulfilled. I am fulfilled. Right. I am, you know, in the Indian parlance, I have attained moksha. Fine. But what does that mean to the world?
What have you given to the world? Exactly.
What did I give to the world? Yeah. So if I'm going to die fulfilled, if I'm going to die with all those, complete satisfaction that I achieved, whatever I had to achieve, or I have no regrets and so on and so forth, isn't that being selfish? Isn't that being talking about yourself? On the other hand, Anand, what you're describing to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that I need to die empty. Whatever I have gained from this world has to be given back to this world, and I am nothing but a piece of material once I die. So is that what we are saying, Anand?
Yes, exactly. You know, in the modern medical concept, you donate your body, you donate your eyes, you donate your, various organs, and that's the physical part. But what about the conscious part? What about the other parts of your body? That's where, die empty is a great concept. And I think we could add our little bit to do this.
And that's a very fantastic analogy because, the very concept of donating our body organs is that these organs are going to be useless once we die. And that's not helping anybody. Why don't we instead donate these organs so that some other life can live them in? And on the same front, taking this a little higher, as you said, what about your conscience? What about your consciousness?
Yeah.
What about all the knowledge, the experience, the good, bad, the indifferent, the ugly?
Yeah.
Where does that go? That can't die and get buried with us.
Exactly.
So that is the concept of dying early.
Yeah. So what's in your brain stored with the huge library, and what's in your heart, all the emotions, that is what you need to contribute when you are alive. That is what this is all about.
So that means while it may help us to feel relieved that I completely emptied myself to the world and anybody can use this, let's look at it from the point of view of the people who are viewing us. How is it going to help you? It's very simple. The wonderful analogy that Anand gave is that it's like when I'm dead, my heart is of no use, so I'm giving it to you, to anybody who needs that heart. So viewers, for your benefit, may I add that this series is going to be important because you are going to take a part of what we got from the world. And the beauty is when we, for example, donate a heart, we donate it to one person. But when we give back the ideas, when we give back the learnings, when we give back our consciousness, we are giving it to millions of people who want to take it. So heart has possibly one recipient, kidney has one recipient, some other organ has one recipient. But this knowledge, these experiences have maybe a million, maybe 100, maybe 1,000 recipients. In that sense, this becomes a much, I would say, a much more useful idea than just donating an organ. Is that fair to say, Anand?
Absolutely. Let me use an emoji.
Okay. So getting from there and talking about what is dying empty, I wish to tell our viewers that this will be a continued series, which we will try to record as often as our schedules permit and as often as we are able to have some material which is worthy of giving to you.
Yeah.
And in this today's introductory session where we talk about what is dying empty, I would like to briefly touch upon the year that we started working. The year was 1980. Now, give or take 6 months here and there, right? 79, 81, and whatever. We both started working in Crompton Greaves Limited, which was then Crompton Greaves Limited. I think in the course of time, it changed its names and it became only Crompton, and then it became Crompton Power and so on and so forth, but that's not important. What is important is that I came from Srinagar, Kashmir. Anand came from Bangalore, and we both started working in a village called Satpur, which is in the Nasik district of Maharashtra. We both started working in the marketing department as freshman trainees. Now, the reason this learning was important to both of us is that it was a direct transition from the campus into the corporate. I see, as we have gone through this journey of about 40 odd years, I see these days you have training programs called campus to corporate. Those days, such things were unheard of. So when we got into corporate, we were kind of thrown from the campus into the corporate. Now it's like being thrown into the sea and you learn to swim. And I may tell you guys, in most of the cases, even today, that is exactly what happens to young graduates from colleges when they get into a job. Anand, help me to understand, what was your experience in that, having been thrown into the sea and then asked to swim?
Well, I think you described it very aptly, Ravinder. It was like we hit the ground running.
Yep.
The first day when I was there, I was given a few brochures and I was asked to read it. And I was at my desk the whole day, drinking several cups of tea, which we were used to. And then I was wondering, what am I doing here? And the second day, I was told by my manager, go train yourself on the shop floor. And that is where I hit the ground running. So I had to network myself with the colleagues on the shop floor. Of course, we had a lot of people of the same age, so we were able to, strike a great rapport. I looked at the products, I interacted with the workers, and after 2 days, I was called back to the department. So my training was over. And but then what I realized going forward, that this is training on the job. You keep learning every day. So every single day I worked in that company, I have learned. So my first job was to, the department was already being set up while you were there, and our good colleague Alok was there, and you were running the products part of the department. I was told to run the communications, the external communications to the customer part of it. So my first job was to look at the brochures and think of what should be the right communication to the external customer. Well, I was a rookie. I had no idea. So I sat down with you, with Alok, and with some other colleagues in the department, and tried to understand what is this business all about. And I learned. So you keep learning by interacting with people. As long as you have the need and the will to learn, it's possible to glean a lot of information on your own, and then put it in a cohesive form and present it to the external world. And I believe that is one of a most enjoyable kind of a beginning of a career. You remember
Brilliant.
those days, Ravinder?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's like the back of my palm, though it's something like 40 odd years back, but I remember them as if I'm living them right now. One of the points which I want to pick up from your experience, and you made some very wonderful points, 2 or 3 of them, is your training on the shop floor. I got to understand this, of course, after I left Crompton Greaves. But having said that, my message to the youngsters is that, look, you are not going to learn anything by listening to people. Even by listening to me and Anand, you will not learn anything. You only learn when you actually grease your hands. You put the grease on your hands. Now, we were working in a manufacturing setup, so there were products being manufactured on the shop floor. You could be working in the service industry, you could be working in the trade industry, you could be working in information technology, or so on. But do not expect to learn anything out of books. Do not expect to learn anything from what you are told. You will learn only from what you experience. Now, when you go to the shop floor, you actually see a workman working, and then you tell him, hey, can I try this myself? And you start putting some nuts and tightening some bolts and so on. So you're putting grease on your hands. My message, particularly to the youth today, is that one thing that we have learned, I have learned, Anand has learned, and Anand is talking about this, is that there is no learning possible, at least in the initial stages, and to a large extent at any stage. There's no learning possible unless you put your hands into the grease. That was one very powerful point, Anand, you made. And the second thing, and I want to wrap today's episode now, because we want to, I don't want to run these 40 years into the next 5 minutes. Another important thing that you talked about, and this is possibly what we will talk in our next episode. You talked about you were given the task of external communication to the customer. Guys, I want to tell you one thing. We are talking of a period when there was no internet.
Yeah.
There were no, I think the telegrams were there. Yeah, there was not the telegram app, but the telegram which you used to punch and,
Telexes. Yeah.
We had telexes. and there was no social
faxes.
media,
No faxes.
no faxes, not even Xerox machines. I think Xerox machine came much later. There was no social media, no Facebook, no Instagram, no LinkedIn, no nothing, no YouTube. So if you have to communicate to your customer, you got to communicate only by hard printed brochures, materials, and of course, many other things which Anand will talk possibly in the subsequent sessions. But remember, customer communication those days had a single vehicle, and that vehicle was print. Today, as we experienced and as we are right now using, if we had to die empty writing all these things down, it would take us 200 years. But we are able to communicate to you whatever we learned over those years by just sitting before a camera. And it's not just one, it's hundreds and thousands of you who are watching this, and maybe another thousands who will watch it later on. So the customer communication has also gone through a lot of transformation. But teaching you transformation is not my purpose. My purpose is that when you are out of the college and you are thrown to communicate to the customers, the challenge those days was much harder than what it is today. And why do I say that? Because you had just one medium, and that medium was paper. Today, you have social media, you have internet, you have this, that, and the other. So that was about corporate communication. That was about what we learned in the first few years. I'd like Anand to
I would like to add one more communication which was available, which was the greatest tool during those days and which remains the greatest tool forever. That is face-to-face meeting with a customer.
Absolutely.
I recall one particular incident which you would also be aware of. Once a customer called for a meeting, and the manager said, the customer has called you for a meeting. You have to be there tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Incidentally, it was Bhopal. So the best way to go to Bhopal from Nasik was to catch Punjab Mail at 9 p.m. in the evening. I didn't have reservation. I didn't have reservation. My boss said, I don't care whether you travel first class, second class, third class, with the engine driver or the guard. I want you in front of the customer tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Period. That is one of the best communications, which you could have face to face.
Yep.
I'm sure you have that experience several times.
I've had that. I have had that in my tons. The important point here is two things. One is the fact that face-to-face communication with the customer is ultimate.
Yeah.
And those of you who have been reading for the past 2 years when we were going through the pandemic, we were saying the world has changed from offline to online. Now every communication has to be online and so on and so forth. But trust me and trust our experience. At the end of the day, there is nothing like being in front of the customer. Not because of the physical distance. Let me explain why it is important. Be it your customer, be it your training participant, be it your colleague, be it anybody. It is not important because you are physically present. That doesn't add much. What adds much is this. When you are sitting in front of a person, you are able to watch the expressions on his face, which are reflective of what you have taught.
Exactly.
I don't remember who, but one of the greatest management gurus, I think it was who had written that book, Anand, what was it called? What they don't teach you in the Harvard Business School. Who was the author, Anand?
I don't remember, but I remember that title. Yeah.
And in this book, he says that I will spend $1 million and take a flight to meet my customer in the other continent than speak on a phone call. It was not because he enjoyed the air travel. It was also not because he loved the food or he liked the air hostess. It is because he wanted to know what. Incidentally, the guy is Mark McCormick, and he was the founder of a company called what marketing? Sportsman Marketing. He's the founder of Sportsman Marketing in the world. Anyway, Getting back here. So the expression on the face of the recipient when you are making a communication is what tells the communicator as to how much the other person has understood, imbibed, or reflected on. I'll give you a live example. We are talking to you right now. We are able to look at each other. We are not able to look at you. You are looking at us. I do not know how many of you are laughing. I do not know how many of you are frowning. I do not know how many of you are sad. I don't know how many of you are happy. So I have that disadvantage that I'm not able to see how you are responding to what I'm talking. Now, this is the important point which Anand brought out in his, in his experience on having to go to Bhopal and being in front of the customer. And when the boss said that I want you there at 9 o'clock, I couldn't care less as to how. The boss was not being crazy. He knew that when a young, smart person like Anand goes and sits before the customer, gives him his presentation, the impact is going to be totally different. That was one aspect. The second aspect is many of the youngsters today keep complaining that the boss is not being kind. He's not having a heart. He's not empathizing. How can I go by train? This is my problem. You are not listening to me. This company is not treating me well. Guys, get it straight in your mind. The company has not employed you with the intention of being a good guy. Company has no business to be a good guy. Company is there for profits, for its corporate objectives, for its goals. And in that, don't be offended if your boss is telling you that no matter what, you got to deliver. I couldn't care less. You might feel that I'm being blunt or I'm being rude. Well, so be it. Because at the end of the day, a corporate entity, a company, is for a commercial purpose. As long as the boss is not being disrespectful to you, as long as he is not, I should never say that he's not abusing you, or he is not misusing you, as long as he is telling you empathetically that I want you there, that's it. You have no reason to feel offended. And today we are talking of very comfortable ways of traveling. Out those days, Anand was asking me whether I had that experience. I have traveled in unreserved second-class compartments because there was no third class those days. I have traveled in unreserved second-class compartments in order to meet a client or in order to make a delivery. Perhaps that is what helped me and Anand to go from that to where we have recently been. I don't intend to brag, but we have led multinational companies with billions of dollars of turnover. And if I were to conclude, the fundamental learning which Anand and I had at Crompton Greaves, good, bad, or indifferent, is something which we are not able to forget even today. We learned a lot of things over the last 40 years, but there are some learnings that you do not forget. And those learnings are what you learn in your formative years.
Yeah.
Anand, anything to conclude?
No, I think brilliantly put, Ravinder. Thanks for that, for expanding on some of the terse ideas or statements that I made. But this is what happens when you have an evening chat like this. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, those of you who are viewing us. I hope you enjoyed this, and we will be encouraged to take it forward based on your feedback. I cannot see your feedback as I am talking, but I look forward to hearing your feedback in the comments, in the emails, over phone calls, over whatever you like. And once we have that feedback, that'll give us an idea of how much we need to work more, how much we need to improve on ourselves. Because keep one thing in mind, no matter what, we are going to empty out everything here. That is a determined decision which we have made. Now, how best can it be of use to you will depend upon the feedback that you give us, and in turn we improve. With that, I wish you the best of luck, and me and Anand are here available to you almost 24/7 for any questions that you have about what we talked today or about what we may not have talked but is in your mind, and we will be only too delighted to answer those questions. Thank you and God bless you.
Have a great evening.